All right, hey guys, what's going on? It's that home theater dude. Got a brand new episode for you today. Today's video is a little weird. I don't necessarily do very rushed reviews, but apparently the company was very emphatic that they only have 2 of these review units available. So I'm just going to go ahead and rush this video. I don't usually do this, but this is going to be a quick overview of my experience of the NAD T778. So I'm going to get into it right after the intro. So today we're reviewing the NAD T778. The very first time that I got my eyes on this one was back in January 2020. They basically just showcased it. There was going to be a grand reveal over at Las Vegas that they actually were having this one available this year, and it is a really cool unit. So not only do you get the touchscreen, which is really, really cool, and not a lot of AVRs have a touchscreen, but I'm going to go into why it has it a little bit later on. It has 11 channels of processing, 9 channels of internal amplification right out of the box. So now there's a lot of things to be said with that. So just right out of the box, you're kind of limited to a 5.2.4 or a 7.2.2. So whichever way you want to do it, however you want to slice it. If you add an external amplifier on top of that, which basically means a stereo amplifier, just 2-channel minimum, you can use that full potential, which is going to be 11 channels of amplification. So with that, that means you're going to be able to do a 7.2.4 or however many channels that you want to slice that up into. So the .2 is going to be your subwoofers, and you guys already know that. But besides that, the cool thing with this one is that they kind of underrate their power ratings. So NAD has been known for this over the years, and the cool thing is that it's going to have 85 watts a channel for those 9 channels that I was talking about internally driven. Now that doesn't sound like a lot, but if you talk about how other companies like Denon, Marantz, Yamaha, all those companies, they kind of do some funny business to give you what you would see would be more or less more power on the box. So if you're shopping for one, you'd be like, well, this one has 160 watts a channel. It's not 160 watts a channel. Probably they did some fuzzy stuff with the impedance, gave you the ratings at 4 ohms or 6 ohms, or maybe even just 2 channels driven. This is all 9 channels going at exactly the same time. So that 85 watts doesn't really seem like a lot, but I've tested it out, and it definitely does the trick. So besides that, with being 85 watts a channel, they kind of talked about how it's not necessarily an autoformer like the Macintosh is, but you can get that 85 watts a channel for those 9 channels at 4 ohms and at 8 ohms. Typically on other processors or AVRs, you're going to be getting an increase in power if you go down to 4 ohms. But with this one, it is just steady across the board. And again, I keep saying it's very conservatively rated. So you're probably more or less getting something along the lines of 90 or maybe even close to 100. It's unofficial, but that's probably what you're getting. Now, on the flip side of that, like I talked about before, a lot of those companies, they don't necessarily tell you what their power rating is. They'll kind of give you a kind of like a tongue-in-cheek answer, but it's not necessarily the real deal Holyfield, and this one is. So that's what I think is really cool with that one. Okay, so not only does it have the touchscreen that's already cool, it also has that fully disclosed power rating like we just talked about. So those are the couple things that I think is really, really cool so far. Things that I don't necessarily like for my experience is I couldn't get, this has Dirac. Couldn't get it to work. I tried, I did the little dongle, plugs it in the USB, didn't do anything. So I mean, this is a review unit, so it has some hours on it. So there was some finagling that I had to do from the original person that reviewed it. I'm not necessarily sure what they did with it, but for my personal use, I couldn't use the Dirac. So if you can't in that situation, I'm pretty sure that it's not going to be a problem for anyone else or anyone pretty much watching this video. But just for the brand new version that just came out for these review purposes, I think that maybe it wasn't working just yet. But as I'm talking about, it'll probably be fully working and fully functional by the time you guys actually watch this. Other than that, I had to do a manual setup, so I went ahead and basically just measured the distances from the couch to the actual speakers themselves, kind of extrapolated the distance, how it would be going from the ceiling bounce to my main listening position, and then at the same time used a dB meter, kind of targeted 75 watts. This one does it very, very easily so that you don't have to worry about pressing the volume after you go into the test tone. One thing that I did not really like is that you have to actually activate the white noise on the remote. So there's a test button that you have to press, and I had to look for it, for you know, a little whiles because there's really small print and it's not very intuitive just to sit there and read a remote. But you have to press that button and then you can actually sit there and cycle through and target your actual 75 dB. Besides that, the sound was very realistic, and I played, you know, some video games with it, watched a couple of quick clips. But besides that, I really think the audio quality is very impressive with this thing. So just real quick, with this whole system, I'm running the Monoprice THX versions of their Atmos speakers. So I have the bigger ones up front on stands. I have these smaller bookshelves that still have the Atmos firing at the top in the back. And then I have their big honkin' center channel right here in the front. Over here, I have the SB2000 Pro, and this system, I was even talking to the wife, like this system sounds bigger than what it is, and it's just really impressive. I get that everything's a little more closer and a little more, like attainable, because typically you're gonna have these things kind of far back on the walls and then spread out. But everything sounded nice and tight. I really liked the way it sounded. There was a slight bit of distortion, but I think that's more or less the center channel versus anything, because all the gains were dialed in perfectly and I wasn't pushing it crazy hard. So you can get this thing very loud, very quick. So typically on a normal operation, I tended to use the volume over at around -25, -30 kind of seemed pretty healthy. But if you kind of bump it up, you get close towards -10, it is crazy loud, and you may want to go ahead and use some hearing protection if you go even past that. But I have no problem thinking that this thing will hit reference without any issue. Besides that, the menus, there were another thing I didn't necessarily like. Let's go ahead and just show you that real quick. So here's your remote, which is really cool. It just pops on whenever you lift it up, which is great. That's exactly what you want in a remote. One thing I didn't like is whenever you're cycling through the menus, you have to use the up and down to control everything. And if you press enter, it kind of cycles through each one of them. So if you start at the top, you kind of have to press over to what you want to look at, and then you have to manually turn it on, turn it off, maybe increase, decrease the gains, whatever it is. And then you have to back out of it, and then you have to go to the next one by pressing enter. You can't press down. If you go all the way to the back of the menu, which is on this side of it, then you can use the up and down versions to cycle up or buttons to cycle up and down. But I mean, it's kind of a learning curve, and I didn't necessarily get used to it in the brief time that I was, you know, playing with it. But seriously, you're not going to be in the menu settings every single day anyway, so I don't think that is a major ding. But the remote's really cool. I like the way it looks. It definitely turns on whenever you want to use it. So that's really cool. You don't have to press a button like with most remotes. Typically something of this caliber, you would expect, you know, a remote to be working like this. I've seen things go for several thousand more dollars that have no lights and they have no button. So it's kind of a mixed bag with the remotes. And you guys know that I like to pick apart, you know, brands specifically just because of the remote. But probably this one did a better job than most, but just that graphic or just that user interface, it kind of seemed more or less that it could be, you know, more user-friendly. Okay, so this is a full 4K version of the AVR. So what you're going to be able to get is 4K pass-through. I had, you know, played some 4K content that didn't have any problems whatsoever. I will note that if you are using some fiber HDMI cables, that may give you some issues. You basically have to use a fiber HDMI extender, which is going to be powering. It uses a USB and then extends the HDMI and basically makes your fiber cable a powered cable. So that may be something that you need to use. It kind of figured it out in the initial setup, so it kind of got glitchy for a second, but then it was just ready to go. So I don't expect anyone to have that problem, especially if you're using copper cables and whatnot. But if you're using this over an extended period, extended length of room, then you may want to use one of those HDMI extenders. I got mine from Muri Pro, available on Amazon. It's like maybe 10 bucks, but it definitely helps out by making those HDMI boards a little bit cooler, so you don't have any problem with your video cutting out. Your audio is going to play like your audio is going to play though. But besides that, that was just my experience with it. Okay, so audio quality. Audio quality is amazing. I really enjoy it. So this thing is basically set up for Blue OS, and that is Blue Sound's type of wireless whole home audio type of system, and that's the reason why I think that touchscreen really comes into play for this one. So I'm thinking it's more or less dual purpose, because if you want to have like some hi-fi speakers up front and then you can basically use the touchscreen to basically use the AVR as a multimedia interface, so that it's kind of like its own DAC on its own right. So you can sit there and play MQA MQA files, which is going to be your high-res files, and this thing is meant for high-res audio. So I think that's what separates it from the pack, like, you know, the more consumer versions out there, like Denon and Marantz, Yamaha, Pioneer. It's that this thing is ready to go with the high-res right out of the box, and it has the visual appearance of that as well. The big old readout that it has, it's kind of like, it's bigger than an iPhone Max is, but the readout is actually available to give you like some artwork from the music that you're playing, and also it works as a view meter. Well, I guess it'd be like this whenever you're playing music as well. So that's another cool feature with it, and I think that it has its own right in the AV community. Would I buy one? I think that if I had more time with it, I think I could probably give you guys a better answer on that. But overall, I'm just really, really impressed with this thing. I think it's a MSRP of $29.99. I'm not sure exactly where to buy it, but if I find out, I'll go ahead and leave it down in the description. But besides that, I think I've had a really good time with the NAD T778. Some very small gripes. I think that, you know, whenever the full rollout of this unit comes out, all of those things will be ironed out. And overall, it's just been a great unit. Haven't really had any issues with it. So big shout out to Lenbrook for actually sending this thing out to me. I know you guys are probably pretty upset with me by now, but it took a little time to get this thing out. I just got through moving. I've had to, you know, finish the chiropractic exams. So a lot of stuff's been going on, and you guys are getting a quick little glimpse of what the new house is. So you guys will stay tuned in the channel. I'll go ahead and show you guys the new space upstairs. This is the family room. This is nowhere near what the actual new home theater is going to be. So I got some cool things planned for you guys up there. You guys will be seeing that very, very shortly. But I really appreciate you guys for watching. If you guys haven't already, make sure you subscribe down below. Make sure you hit that notifications bell. We'll get those videos out to you as soon as they come out. I know with me not posting as much as I should in the last couple of months, that maybe some of you guys aren't necessarily watching these as much as you used to. So please hit that subscribe notifications bell. It really helps get these videos out to you as soon as possible. As always, make sure you like the video, and I got nothing else. So it's been really cool checking this thing out. It's been a crazy little move. Really appreciate you guys for sticking with me. I'll catch you on the next one.